Hello and welcome to L2R. I'm Kinaesthesia, and today I'll be going over the strategy for Chimaeron on the 25 normal difficulty. Excluding Nefarian, Chimaeron is one of 3 inner bosses in Blackwing Descent and can only be accessed after defeating the Omnitron defense system in Magmaw. When he's not holding gnomes hostage like pet guinea pigs, this 2-headed 3-clawed dragon thing enjoys long naps and puddles and causing healers to pull their hair out. Don't worry, we'll show you how to give this menace a permanent nap. The Chimaeron encounter is absolutely a gear check. He has around 90 million health and will require 2 to 3 tanks and 6 to 7 healers. If your raid wants to gain a slight advantage, consider only bringing around 6 melee, excluding tanks of course, to the fight. Much of the burden of this fight will rest on your guild's healers, and their reaction capabilities and gear will determine how far your raid may progress. Fortunately, this fight gives you a unique and interesting buff to contend with the raid damage you will be taking. At the start of the fight, you may notice Finkel, a gnome trapped behind Chimaeron in a cage. Talking to him before the pull will activate his Biolatron and give your raid the Finkel's Mixture buff. While this buff is active, any damage you take while your health is above 10,000 cannot kill you and will instead bring you to 1 HP. Anytime you are above 10,000 health and the Biolatron is online, this buff will be present. Because this is active throughout most of the fight, it means that most players will only need to be healed to around 10,000 health. Healing anybody other than the off tank above this level, while the bot is still active, is a waste of mana and should be avoided. Chimaeron has few abilities, but all of them are extremely dangerous if not handled correctly. The first you will notice is Caustic Slime. Chimaeron will shoot out poison bolts at 3 random targets, dealing around 300,000 damage, split between the target and anybody within 6 yards of them. Because of the Finkel's Mixture buff, this ability will not one-shot players and will instead only bring them to 1 HP. After every 3rd set of Caustic Slime, Chimaeron will cast Massacre. This is a powerful physical attack that deals around 1 million damage to every player. Because of the Biolatron, however, this attack will not kill anybody as long as they are above 10,000 health, and again, will bring them to 1 HP instead. Each time Chimaeron casts Massacre, there is a chance he will knock the Biolatron offline, temporarily disabling it and removing the Finkel's Mixture buff from your raid. When this happens, the raid should quickly stack up in one spot, heal everybody up as much as possible in anticipation for the next set of Caustic Slimes. Because there is no death protection, the raid has to be able to split the damage from Caustic Slime with as many members as possible. Chimaeron will feud with himself during this time, so there are no melee attacks until the bot is back online. During the fight, there are 2 abilities for the tanks to watch for. The first is Double Attack. This is a buff that the boss will periodically gain that allows him to strike twice on his next attack. When he gains this, the off tank should taunt the boss to quickly take both attacks. The second ability is Break. This is a stacking debuff Chimaeron applies to the tank that increases his physical damage taken by 25% and reduces his healing by 15%. This stacks 4 times total. It's of little concern to the main tank, since anytime he is healed above 10,000 health, he cannot be killed anyway. When the boss reaches 20% health, he will begin phase 2. In this phase, he will lose all abilities except for Double Attack and he will gain Mortality. This causes him to be immune to taunts and increases his damage taken by 10%. In addition, during this phase, the raid will take 99% less healing. So essentially, this is like the burn phase of the encounter. At the start of the fight, your raid will want to spread out into their positions. Chimaeron will not aggro until he is attacked, so everybody can get into their spots. Try to place healers towards the middle or in centralized locations to ensure they have range on much of the raid. Melee should try to stack in piles of 2 or 3. Speak to Finkel before pulling to give the raid the Finkel's Mixture buff and then begin the encounter. The first 80% of the fight, phase 1, is really made up of 2 alternating phases. When the bot is online, the raid stays spread out. Healers must keep all raid members above 10,000 health, but do not overheal them further. While players should be healed to 10,000 health after each Massacre, the off tank should be topped off. This way, he will not die to double attacks when he taunts. The main tank, however, does not require as much healing as a normal tank because of the death protection buff. Depending on your raid healing composition, keeping HOTS or beacons on him will be enough to keep him alive. After each Massacre, there is a chance that Chimaeron will knock the bot offline. If this occurs, the raid must quickly collapse into a centralized stack point. Healers should begin using their strongest AoE heals to top off the raid, because Caustic Slime is going to be split between everybody. There are no melee attacks during this stacking, and tanks should come into the stack as well. After a short while, the bot will come back online and Finkel's mixture buff will be reapplied. This is the raid's cue to spread back out into their previous positions. Once there, the fight continues this cycle until the boss health reaches 20%. At around 20%, the raid should wait for the next Massacre, stack up, and proceed to use Tranquilities and Divine Hymn or their strongest AoE heals to top off every player. It is important to go into Phase 2 with as many people at full HP as possible. In Phase 2, the raid should stack in the same centralized spot they've been using. Chimaeron will become immune to taunt and take 10% increased damage. During this phase, the raid takes 99% less healing, so even healers should be DPSing the boss. Have the current tank use all of his cooldowns and face the boss away from the raid to increase overall DPS. The second tank should be ready to use all of his cooldowns when the first tank dies. Depending on your raid's DPS, it is extremely likely that Chimaeron will begin to kill your raid members off one by one during this burn phase. The key is to try to stay alive and kill him before you have no players left.
I wasn't feeling so good. I just didn't feel like playing anymore. So I went home and I got all comfy and cozy and all scrunched up in front of my phonograph.